And we are live, everybody. Good evening. My name is Travis, and of course, I'm joined by Kyle on Discord. Welcome to this week's news roundup. It is the week of May 8th, 2020. Again, I'm Travis. Kyle, you're on Discord, right? You're there? You exist?
I do exist. I am here.
All right. So we got some good news stories for you. It's definitely been a big week in the news, especially or specifically news in the gaming world. So we're talking about the Xbox Series X Inside Xbox event this week. We've got leaks from Nintendo. We've got the possibility of a space franchise being remastered. Let's go ahead and roll that intro, and we'll hop right into those stories. Let's do it. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into our first news story here. This one comes to us from Games Radar, and this is every Xbox Series X game at the May 7th Inside Xbox event. So Games Radar, of course, a lot of other news outlets created some pretty decent summaries of the actual games, of course, that were shown off. However, there was some controversy with it too. Kyle, I'm probably sure you saw some of that, especially after the event on Thursday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about the graphics and stuff.
Exactly. So let's talk about some of the games that they did announce, and then we can kind of circle back around to some of that controversy, I guess, that's kind of come with it. So the entire event was specifically about games. We saw no hardware. We didn't see anything truly software related, like specific to, like, say, the dashboard on how the Xbox Series X is going to look. It was all about games. So a couple of the big things, of course, is that they showed off some more stuff about Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Of course, that trailer was announced, and we talked about it last week. We had this other game here, too. There's a couple of them I actually didn't get the chance to watch because I tuned in late, so you might have to hop in here and help me out with some of them. But we've got Bright Memory Infinite, which the description goes on to say solo developer FYQD Studio has cooked up a lightning fast mix of first-person shooting and melee combat and paired it with an equally eclectic blend of futuristic sci-fi from the year 2036 and Chinese fantasy. So it looks like it's a mix of Bulletstorm with some combo styles that we'd see in Devil May Cry. So I'm going to go ahead and play a little bit of the video here. We'll just take a look at this together. Let's just jump right into this part. But I don't know. I mean, let's talk a little bit about the controversy, I guess, as we've got the video going on here right now. And of course, we'll ooh and ah at it as we go too. Looks almost like Crisis. A lot of the folks in the game industry, specifically those within the game media, were talking more about some of the controversy that came with the Inside Xbox. I don't know if I'd want to call it controversy. I guess is that everybody had their hopes up a lot higher than maybe they should have for this event. And a lot of the problems specifically circled around what was really expected to be shown off and what we didn't get. It felt like a lot of it was just kind of forced. It didn't seem like they were really as set up as they could be. Of course, in the scheme of COVID-19, one of the big problems that we have is, we can't have everybody together. So a lot of it's done via remote conferencing software. Of course, in Microsoft's case, they own Teams, or that's their kind of conferencing Slack and Zoom alternative platform. So they had it going through there, and of course they did some interviews with some developers through it, but it just seemed like there was a lot of things that were kind of expected, and I think maybe the expectations were definitely a lot higher than they maybe should have been. I mean, what did you think out of a lot of the stuff that came out of this, Kyle?
You know, I I think there were a lot of high expectations. I personally didn't have my expectations that high because I know that just in the past doing that sort of thing, especially with releases that they've had to really slow down like this or release in such a way because of because of things like this, but not necessarily because of the situation we're going through, but different things in the industry that would cause a release to happen in such a way. But I I don't know. I that's one of the reasons I didn't have my expectations up so high is because it's happened before, and people like they show off these things like they say gameplay. I see pre-rendered video personally. They say it's supposed to be game. Or people are complaining a lot about the graphics and whatnot. And I don't know. I don't have my expectations too high. I guess.
I I would I'm
Sorry, I'm going
ex-
kind of on a rant
No,
here.
you're good. You're good. That's why we have the news like this, so you and I can go back and forth and do things like this. And so I think you're absolutely right. Is that if you go back and watch a lot of the trailers, I think Assassin's Creed Valhalla was the one that really stuck out for me, of course, because I think that was the big title that a lot of people are expecting to see more about here. The problem, though, is that there was a disclaimer, of course, when they were showing off what they could from the game. Besides just re-showing off the trailer, there were a few other things that were shown too. I think some more like story scenes and that farther along in the game. But it actually had a tag in the bottom that said, what was it? Is that it's like rendered footage will represent Xbox Series X graphics or something like that. So it doesn't mean that it was played on a Series X, but it was played on probably
Right.
PC hardware that was either just at or just above what the Series X can actually do. So that's I think that's really part of it, though, is that it's like here's a gameplay. Here's an event with Inside Xbox where we're going to show off gameplay, and all we're showing you is pre-rendered trailers. Some of the stuff it looked like
Right.
had some of the gameplay in it. Like if we went back and looked at the trailer here for Bright Memory Infinite, I would say that really looked like normal gameplay there. But I think as gamers, we've been tricked and duped several times before. Uh,
That being said,
yeah.
I don't know. There are a few games that I was really stoked about seeing. Specifically, I really liked the way this chorus looked. That looked really cool.
Let's take a look at that one
Start
here.
Yeah, that one. I don't know. It's just this like next gen
Oh,
cyberpunk.
right
I know
here.
we're getting that
Hold on a
with
minute.
with cyberpunk.
So I found it right here. So I have it up right here, and I don't know how many people can actually see this here below the YouTube bar, but it actually says here on chorus for the announcement trailer, it says game and console in development, footage representative of expected Xbox Series X gameplay. So whether or not this is rendering just in a dev console or dev
See, and
environment, that's what we're seeing.
I just I just imagine it's all pre-rendered footage anyway. And don't get me wrong, I understand that, but I really like what they're expecting to do with this game. I'm excited to see more out of it.
I'm
So
not going to argue. I wouldn't actually mind another space fighter type game. I don't have the energy to put into anything like Star Citizen or Elite Dangerous. I think something that just has you hop in with some customization, that would actually be pretty fun. So it looks like that's about what this is going to be, is just specifically flying around and shooting. But yeah,
yeah, it looks like there's a good portion of it, and there's this big sci-fi aspect. I don't know. I think it looks really cool. That's one that I'll be definitely picking up on release. I wish we had a more definitive date. I know. Um, I was gonna put an article about it in here, but since you kind of touched with this,
hmm
I imagine we'll hear more with this Xbox 2020, as in like the show 2020. That's what they're calling the program, the
hmm
Xbox 2020 program. That they'll be releasing all this information about games, hardware, so on and so forth over the next few months about the release. So,
I can really hope so. That would be great
but
if that's the case.
there was that one, and the what was the vampire one?
It's farther down here on the list. It was what was it? Vampire the
The
Masquerade
Masquerade.
Bloodlines 2. Yep.
Yeah, it's based off that old pen and paper RPG. I think it was White Wolf, if I'm not mistaken, that did that one originally. But that one looks really cool. Scorn looks different. It's got that Giger um, art aspect that looks kind of cool. Kind of interesting to see what that's about.
Yeah.
Scarlet Nexus is one I'm kind of interested in. I'd say the two that I'm most interested in though is Vampire the Masquerade and Chorus. Vampire the Masquerade, the video, once again, it's pre-rendered, but it looks so cool. Like I'm getting like Bioshock vibes mixed with like vampires and stuff. Super cool.
Yeah, and see, like Scorn is one I'm looking forward to, and then I've never played a Yakuza game before, but that new Yakuza Enter the Dragon game looks pretty fun. I think that's gonna be a pretty good amount of like just time wasting, just beating stuff up like over the top anime style. I
Oh
think it's gonna
yeah,
be
and
cool.
if you've never played a Yakuza game, some of them can be serious. More the I'm trying to think what the side series is called. But that one's just started to be more silly, and this looks like they're just expanding on that. So
Most
I don't
likely,
know.
yeah. And I got the trailer for Scorn going here right now, and this gives me more of those vibes of like a cross between, say, like Prometheus and Alien, and well, it's really all the same franchise. That, as well as kind of like a lot of your other demon stuff too, Dead Space and
Yeah, and like I said,
Doom.
um it really has that Giger, that HR Giger art style. That's what Alien and Prometheus drew a lot of their art style and art direction from, was HR Giger's artwork. So I don't know, it looks really cool, kind of disturbing but very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it looks like a lot of things, of course, about like birth and death and kind of the in between. That's why it's got that like good alien, like you said, HR Giger vibe to it. Second Extinction is another one that I'm also kind of looking forward to. I think when I first saw it, because of course there was no like title with it or anything, part of me thought it's like, okay, is this a new arc? And then there were a couple weapons that came up, and then I saw the dinosaurs, and
Oh
I was
yeah, I
like, wait,
forgot
are
about this
we?
one. I was really excited about this one
I
because
was,
the mass killing of
yeah,
dinosaurs. It just
I was kind of almost wondering if this was going to be like a cross or like a revamp of Dino Crisis or
I was just about to say that,
Turok.
like it almost feels like the next evolution of a Turok or Dino Crisis game.
Like when didn't we get like a Turok remake or something around the launch of the? Was it around the launch of the Xbox One, or was it like towards the end of the Xbox 360? Because there was like a Turok that came out. I swear there was, and everybody was
I don't
excited about it,
recall.
but it was a piece of shit. But I like this though because it just seems like you said exactly absolute mayhem and just murdering troves of dinosaurs, which I think is just it's cool. I think it's be a good that's gonna be a good co-op game. And it even says here it's like exactly what you're picturing. And if we're not going to get a Dino Crisis reboot, then we'll gladly fill the gap. That's the note from Games Radar here on this one. We got other announcements like the Ascent, more like a cyberpunk style co-op game. We got the Medium, which is another kind of fear horror scare game, and it even makes a note here about
Yeah,
it
like
being
a
Silent
Silent Hill,
Hill.
and yeah, and they've actually got the what was it, music director from Silent Hill on that one. So
Yeah, and then I butchered the title here, was Yakuza, like it's like a dragon, not Enter the Dragon. I'm getting the Bruce Lee and all that
yeah,
mixed up. So that's what we got coming up here from Microsoft on the Xbox side of things. And again, I think like what we really said, I think a lot of the hype, of course, was there that it's like, oh, we're gonna get all these things. It's like here's our filler for not having an E3 this year. Here's all the stuff we're gonna get. It did really focus, of course, on more you know, non first party games. So everything third party. They're all gonna be good games, of course. We're gonna see a lot of these on the PlayStation, even probably a couple of them on the Switch. Majority of them probably on PC. So a lot to really kind of take in there. And then we got a news story, of course, later on that talks about Microsoft's plans for their own stuff. But I think a lot of the controversy, though, that came up from this was definitely not. I don't know. I think a lot of the negativity towards it was just kind of meh. It was whatever. We did expect gameplay, but to take what we can get is the key thing right now. At least until we start seeing more of the first party stuff and we start getting closer to launch. when we start actually seeing like, demos for some of these games on Xbox One, and they may not be definitive and what we're going to see on the Series X, but it's like, okay, we can actually try some of these out to see if we can, is it worthwhile to buy them? Is it worthwhile to buy the Series X if my Xbox One can play it just fine? Is it going to be that way? So let's move on here to the next story. And of course, this one in the grand scheme of things, specifically COVID-19. This one's from Kotaku, and this one was actually published yesterday evening. The 2020 Tokyo Game Show has been canceled. So Tokyo Game Show is basically the E3 and the Gamescom and the GDC of Japan, of Southeast Asia. So we're now losing at least another conference, of course. Let's just jump into what the article talks about here. So the Tokyo Game Show, one of the biggest video game events on the planet, last year drew over 260,000 people, has been canceled for 2020 amidst the COVID-19 pandemic and will now be replaced with an online showcase, which is awesome. A statement released by the show's organizers sent to Kotaku reads, "Due to the outbreak of novel coronavirus on a global scale, and the situation remains unpredictable in Japan as well, the organizer and the co-organizers have reached this decision after a long consideration to place the utmost priority on the health and safety of visitors, exhibitors, and stakeholders. We ask for your kind understanding and cooperation." It doesn't make really, any difference here. It was probably bound to be canceled in the first place anyway. But for those who don't really pay attention to the stuff at a Tokyo Game Show, you don't really have much from Microsoft there. At least a lot of people never usually paid too much mind to Microsoft. Nintendo and Sony, arcade games, of course, though, too, mobile stuff. That's where a lot of the games are really focused at. I think Microsoft has some presence, but it's definitely not as big as the things you'd see at like GDC, Gamescom, E3, and their own events. Were you looking forward to anything out of Tokyo Game Show, Kyle? I mean, I know Dan is into his JRPGs. I think you more so would probably look for more like your Japanese hack and slash.
Yeah, well, I like my JRPGs too, but I feel like there's such a disconnect for the Tokyo Game Show for an American audience. I mean, there are outlets to get the information from there, but especially since there's not you do have IGN, but especially with G4 TV gone, that removes a big outlet for some people, because some
Agreed.
people don't necessarily get on the internet to look that stuff up, but if it's on TV, they would. I don't know. I feel this makes it more accessible to a broader audience, especially I know some of the companies have put out stuff when they did the show, and that's been a thing for every show and every company, but this just broadens it, I think.
Agreed.
Does that make any sense?
No, it does. I agree. And Tokyo Game Show, of course, definitely really aligned with a lot of that anyway, too. But I think you're absolutely right, is the fact that,
it would be nice to get that coverage, to get, to have a better access to that coverage. And I think now that, people are more forced to go online to get more information and stuff, that this is finally the time that, it's good that they're doing an online presence with this thing. So maybe they will expand that audience. Right.
And I'm wondering, though, too, on that anyway, is the fact, for a lot of these game conferences anyway, though, too, whether it is, all the ones that we've mentioned or any new ones that are going to be starting, is that if online is going to be a larger emphasis, or more shows that are going to be in more of an outdoor style area. So instead of putting anything inside, with the way social distancing has worked now too, and trying to keep that space, if that's going to become the standard, not only putting shows online, or at least information online so people can find it there, but actually for people who want to attend, if they're going to make it more open, or if this is going to change just to everything being online, because you have to look at a couple things. Is you have to look at the cost for being able to get a building, You know,
Well, and
and you're talking about logistics too. Not only are you talking about the transportation of people to and from the place, but you're talking about how they're getting transported there. Whether, of course, in Japan, really it's going to be train, but you've got bus and you still have your own personal vehicle. You got bicycle, at the same, and then of course just regular walking. But at the same time, then you've also still got security logistics to think about though too. Is how are you going to protect the vendors? How are you going to protect IP? How are you going to protect the staff? How are you going to protect yourselves? It's so wide ranging out there, of course, on the cost with these things that I'm sure a lot of these companies are going to go back and look and it's like, well, we have money now in the bank because we haven't had to attend all of these and we've still been able to deliver the same level of content. It hasn't been as, in your face with a lot of things, and our stages aren't built up, all these funky designs or anything, with the screens everywhere. Of course, like with Microsoft's E3 conference last year, I think when they had what was it, the WWE wrestlers, I can't remember the name of the trio, but they were playing Gears 5, I think, underneath the stage. And they had
right.
the underneath the stage all set up to look like some sort of Gears like underground level, or even when Keanu Reeves walked out, or several years ago when they had the Lego, I think it was a Lego Bugatti that came up in that represented the Lego expansion for Forza. No, it was last year, I think. But it's like that's all elaborate. And there's a lot of things like ooh ah. But now it's like, oh, we got money in the bank and we can maybe use this towards other better things.
Well, and here's another thing to think about too: is now that there's more game shows doing this, what if? Because there's two aspects actually. Um, there's all these game shows that are putting out these online shows now, that they didn't do before. Is this going to become a norm, or is it going to become expected from the game companies, or for a larger corporation to try and bring the game companies together to make a show like this, to you know I don't know. I guess I'm getting lost in my own thing.
Well, no,
Like,
I think you're going the right path because it's already been happening. Nintendo doesn't have a
right,
presence at
but
E3
then
anymore, and Sony does their own thing now too.
then there's this to consider too,
Mm-hmm.
is they're gonna see this and say, oh well, what if we decide to do a show when everything's said and done? Is it going to become more of a novelty thing, because there was a lot of companies that were thinking about, or even E3 wanted to make it, for the vendors only, or go back to that again,
Mm-hmm.
and there were other shows that were thinking about making it for the vendors only. And now, could it possibly be that maybe they want to go, oh, since we do have the online show that we're going to be doing every year now because it's an expectation thing, what if we make it a novelty for people to be able to come to the show still? So, what if they do open it back up, maybe to a lesser audience, and make it more exclusive?
No, I think that would be a fair thing. I could see that still happening because digital's not going to completely take away the experience of actually being in front of a stage, actually hearing these people talk about their games, talk about consoles, talk about what's coming up, what's going down. You're not going to take away from the charm of that. I still have a goal to want to go to E3 here at some point in time. I still want to check out PAX, but I know it's not going to happen anytime soon. Those are kind of little bucket list things that I have. I think where I see it though right now is just like you said, is that yeah, we're going to have that novelty part, but I think maybe part of the lesson here itself too is that maybe these game companies, not just the first party companies, but and the hardware companies, but you're also talking like your third parties, your lower level developers, your indie developers. I wonder if we're going to see more announcements like spread out and chunked out, so that way like you don't put all of your eggs in one basket, and it's like your entire experience by showing off all these games is ruined by this one thing. And let's go back to the example of our first story talking about all the Xbox games announced and the stuff showing off. Of course, we didn't get gameplay. We got the excuse me, the disclaimers that we're talking about. The footage, of course, should be at Xbox Series X standards. There's a lot there that's going on that it doesn't seem like they're catching, you know, all in that one go. And so I think for them to actually space everything out, they might save themselves a lot of trouble and continue to build that hype.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, besides getting off on that tirade with that, yeah, COVID-19 is just tearing everything apart now. Or excuse me, now it has been. What am I saying? It's been tearing everything apart. I haven't left my house in what feels like weeks. So
Right.
yeah. So
I have to work still, but I mean, when I'm not at work, I'm at home all the time. So
this is why it's funny, Kyle, because literally for me, I'm sitting right where I normally work. The only difference is that my work computer is put away. I've got my second monitor out for my regular gaming PC, and that's how all of this is working right now. Is I'm literally in the exact same chair and the same setup as I was at work only a few hours ago.
right.
Jesus Christ. So let's move on here into this next story, and this one's definitely going to be a fun one, especially as fans of the series. This one comes to us from The Verge. This was announced on the 5th. Halo 2 Anniversary arrives on PC May 12th. That is next Tuesday. So that'll be available on the Microsoft Store, Steam, and Xbox Game Pass PC, which means for those of us who have Game Pass, me included, get it for free. So Kyle, talk to us about Halo 2.
Yeah, so Halo 2 Anniversary is an HD remaster version of Halo 2, which came out on the original Xbox in 2004. It includes a major overhaul to the game's visuals, in addition to the soundtrack and sound effects. Excuse me. Halo 2 Anniversary also allows users to switch back and forth from the original graphics to the updated visuals in the campaign mode. We already knew this, of course. I absolutely love these features. But continuing on, the article says Halo 2 Anniversary originally came out as part of Halo the Master Chief Collection on Xbox One in 2014. The compilation also features Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary, Halo 3, Halo 3 ODST, and Halo 4. Microsoft would also later release Halo Reach into the compilation roughly 5 years after the initial release. A PC port of the Master Chief Collection launched in late 2019, though it only included Halo Reach at launch. Combat Evolved Anniversary has since been added, and Microsoft plans to add the rest of the games over the course of 2020. So I kind of feel like PC players are getting a little burned on this one, you know?
Why is that
Is that
exactly?
just me? I mean, it released so long ago on Xbox, and the architecture is so similar between the PC and the Xbox that at this point we could have almost ported it and it would have been just fine.
Did we?
So
I know we had Halo on PC. Did we ever have an original Halo 2 on PC, or was it planned and then there was so much emphasis that it's just like just do Xbox?
I'm not actually sure on that one.
Yeah, I can't immediately recall either. But yeah, that's so it looks like it's going to cost for the full Master Chief Collection. It's going to cost you $40. You can also buy Halo 2 separately for $10. Of course, if you get it through Xbox Game Pass for PC, that's where you get access to all of those games anyway too. So when Reach came out, I first installed it on my PC. I have not got back in and played it again since probably like the week or two after it came out, because I think about halfway or 3/4 of the way through the campaign. I was running into issues with audio, and it was just enough to bug the crap out of me that I stopped playing until I could hear, about a fix of some kind or a patch or something. And I haven't heard anything since. So I'm hoping Halo 2 coming to PC doesn't suffer the same fate. But I will say, going back to when they they got rid of the pistol, they introduced dual wielding with the SMGs. That's going to be fun to kind of go back to, especially when you were. I think my favorite level had to be, I don't remember if it was the first one. No, it was the second one, because the first one had you on the space station, then you had to go back down to Earth, and you were driving the Scorpion tank across the bridge. and it was around that same time as you were driving. I think it was either you were driving it around or just after, was when you were introduced to the Scarab, and that
Oh
itself was
yeah,
just awesome. You know, I miss that. That was by far one of my favorite things.
yeah.
Yeah.
I will conclude the article by saying the Master Chief Collection is available on PC. If you don't have the Game Pass and aren't able to download it with your membership on PC through Steam, through Microsoft, maybe even through Epic Game Store, I imagine, for $39.99, Halo 2 Anniversary will be just $9.99. So pick it up. It's worth a playthrough, if nothing else.
Absolutely. And if you've been missing out, of course, on anything, especially with the Master Chief Collection, or if you've jumped around so much with Halo, like Halo 1 wasn't your first one, Halo 2 wasn't your first one, you maybe joined in on Halo 3 or ODST, it's worth it, especially to fill in the story part itself too, to go back and play some of those, because like Kyle said, and it's definitely I actually do like that feature of being able to switch between the newer updated graphics and the older stuff, because it's neat to see the technology behind it, but then it also gives you a level of appreciation for 343 Industries taking a game that they didn't make and putting the effort forward to actually do what they can with it. So it's cool.
It's fun to me because it feels like this is how I remember the game, and then I switch back to how it was, and I'm like, holy crap!
Yeah, it's like I remember when I first started playing Reach again, and I was trying to sort out the controls, because a lot of your shooters now, of course, sprint is a default thing.
Yeah, everything's almost
Yeah,
standardized for your shooters.
exactly. And Reach was the first one of the Halo series to introduce those mods where you could have a jetpack, you could do the hologram, you could do
Hmm.
the bubble shield, you could do or the armor lock, you could do the sprint, but you couldn't have all of them. You could only have one at a time. And that was a big thing for the games at that point in time when Reach came out. That was such a big addition to those games. I think a lot of other companies, of course, took note of it, and now we see, of course, Halo 4 and 5 have it by default.
Yeah.
And a lot of the other mechanics go with it too. But that's all on Reach. But like I was saying, is that it's weird to get back into playing those older games when you're so used to the way the controls go. I'm sure I'm gonna have the same problems with Halo 2. And I think, Kyle, for you and I, are you gonna get it on Xbox? Are you gonna get it on? Are you gonna? Or wait, it's already out on Xbox. Are you gonna get it on PC?
I'm not certain. I don't. I probably won't. Because I bought the Master Chief Collection. No, actually, that was one I got for free when I was working at GameStop when it first came out. So
Do you? Do
I've had
you?
it digitally
Okay.
since day one. So I probably won't pick it up. Plus, I'm kind of bogged down on games on my computer right now.
I was gonna say, if you have Game Pass and you get it on PC, then maybe we should co-op some of it on PC.
That might be worth a shot
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know. I might have enough room to install it. I'll check it out.
It's not Call of Duty, so it's not 120 gigs to install this game. I mean, this game came out for the original Xbox, so it's got to only be like what, 10, 12 gigs.
Oh, I imagine it's bigger than that because I think the actual install
Don't say
from the
that.
Master Chief Collection on Xbox was even a little bit bigger, or on the One was a little bit bigger than that. Not much,
Mm-hmm.
but
Agreed. Yeah. Well, don't say that though, Kyle. Come on, think small here. But as you're thinking about that, I'm going to move us in here to the next story, and this one also comes to us from Kotaku. This one was published yesterday. Valorant players say anti-cheat is making their PCs overheat, and I hate seeing this story because yesterday I just got my closed beta key for Valorant. So I could install it and I could set it up on here, but after reading this, I think I'm going to wait just a little bit longer. So going into the story here, there's anti-cheat software, and then there's the program Valorant's got under its hood. When the game's closed beta first launched, the clandestine anti-cheat was always running in the background. Now players can disable it when they're not playing Riot's 60% more wizardy version of Counter-Strike, but it started to cause other issues. That is to say, if your PC is overheating, it might be Valorant's fault. So, of course, the article goes on to talk about this a little bit more. So one of the comments here, it looks like this one came from Reddit. Spent last 3 hours figuring out why I couldn't get into Windows because my keyboard and mouse wouldn't work. Just before that, I started smelling hot plastic. My graphics card was running above 90 degrees Celsius because, again, Vanguard disabled my cooling software. Vanguard really needs to prevent us from launching the game while X software is active and needs to ask us to close it even if we need to reboot just after instead of disabling everything silently. So that's interesting, especially because cooling, of course, necessarily isn't done by the CPU per se, but it's done by the GPU handles its own cooling because it's all connected together. But I believe the motherboard handles the majority of the actual cooling, save for where you actually plug in the CPU fan, and then the CPU can dictate, how much more cooling it gets there. Same goes with all-in-ones. So apparently, one of them actually reached out to Riot Games through their support, and they literally just asked him to uninstall Valorant without even asking if they had it, which is a big freaking deal. It's they don't even bother checking and offering any other support or anything else. It's like, oh, here we go. This is probably what it is. It's like, crap, really? So it's a shame, of course. There's no real information about exactly what's going on or why it's actually doing it, save for really the actual anti-cheat. But yeah, Vanguard definitely needs to be fixed because we talked about this. What, Kyle? Was it last week when the anti-cheat stuff came out, or was it the week before?
Was it? Oh shoot,
Trying to remember. But anyway, with that though, we talked about it, of course, and the low level connectivity it needs, or the low level access it needs to be able to try to prevent cheaters, would kind of lead into this though too, is the fact that if it is getting that lower level into your operating system, and it's of course starting up at literal boot up, not just after you log into your machine. It's like, okay, it's one of your startup programs. If it's starting up at boot up with that, it's seeing more likely than not these variable changes, of course, in the motherboard, especially for fan speed. And as a computer is booting up, it normally runs everything at full for a few seconds, or if it's an older machine, it'll be for about a minute or so, until it settles all back down, because it's like, oh, here's a check. All right, let's go all the way up. Let's come back down. And here we go. So that's scary for me. That's scary for anybody who's playing this game. That's scary for anybody who's playing this game who has invested more than $1,000 into their computer, because there's no warranty on that says if Vanguard breaks your computer, Riot's going to pay money for you to get it fixed. So it's a shame. It's a fucking shame, especially because this game is supposed to be a really big one, and it's still a very popular one on Twitch. I don't know.
Yes, it is. It's taken over Twitch.
I think where I'd be more afraid at with this one, Kyle, is if you installed it. And the reason I say that is because of your gaming PC being a laptop. The fact that your cooling is already limited to a point, and games will play well enough, with the cooling that's available. But I mean, you could really destroy your laptop quick with something like this.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you had some sort of crazy cooling setup where, what is it? They have those USB cooling pads, those chill pads you just plug into the side and then you have underneath. So I don't know. It's like I couldn't do it. Like, that's why I'm not going to install it. And I wouldn't recommend anybody with a laptop install it until we figure out what's going on.
Didn't you say one of your kids had been playing it?
He has. I actually talked to him about that because I was just trying to figure out if he was having any issues with anything. And he's normally running his computer doing school stuff anyway through the day. But I asked him about it after I read the story, getting our news links all ready to go. And he hasn't complained of any issues. I might install hardware monitor or something on his computer and just kind of keep an eye on it and just see what happens. Because I should be able to get into that remotely and just be able to watch and see what his temperatures get to. And if they do get to be obscene, then what I might do is just completely uninstall Valorant and just watch and see what happens. It's a shame, man. Like, I mean, there are bugs, and then there's hey, we're going to completely break your PC. And they know it. I mean, they knew going into it. It doesn't matter how many security researchers or independent parties or anything you have actually, get into it and tell us what's up. Saying, hey, this is fine, this is okay, everything will be okay. No, that's not the point. The point is that you are sacrificing your hardware and or potentially sacrificing your hardware. Betas are always going to introduce bugs, but that anti-cheat is putting more risk on you and your system just because Riot is afraid of cheaters. And they're not going to take the initiative to try to prevent cheaters as things go on through normal means. They're just going to brute force it in one go. Okay.
Right.
I get it. I get it from some standpoints, but ultimately you got to work with your community. You got to work with these people. So I don't know. I'm done ranting about it because that just pisses me off. So I've got my closed beta key. I'm not going to install yet until I hear about a patch that fixes it, and then I will move on to actually installing it and playing it.
See, and I've got registered for the beta, and I don't know. It makes me question if I do get a beta key, do I want to try and even install it? And exactly like you were saying, it just would probably make my laptop blow up.
Oh, agreed. Yeah, unless, what is it? I'm gonna find this really quick before we get into our next story. Actually, here, let me see here. Go to Newegg. Acer released this. Acer released this Predator laptop. What was it? It was a couple years ago. Let me see here again. I am on Newegg. I don't think that's it though. Maybe that is it. It's massive though, like the actual size of this thing too. I'm trying to find it though because I think Newegg actually has it. But the size of it and the actual cooling that was in it.
I think I've seen that one. It's
I've actually played on one.
Like a couple inches thick, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've actually played on one because Micro Center down in Denver has one. So I'm gonna just open up this one here because I think this is actually pretty close to it. Oh, great. Thanks for that. Yeah, let me bring up my screen here for people to see this. There we go. So this is from Newegg, and this is the Acer Predator Triton 900. It's a touchscreen gaming notebook. And as you can see here, of course, in the slide out part here, of course, the screen kind of tilts forward because there's this big, ugly gap here in between. I was hoping for more pictures. Son of a gun. I got to see if I can find this because it's like if you want the actual cooling to survive, you need this. Maybe that's it. Let me see. Crap, I'm trying to find this thing. Let's see. Acer Predator laptop. Let's see. Can't even spell Predator here. Acer Predator laptop. $10,000. Maybe this is it. It's curved. It came out in 2017. Yeah, so I don't know what this website is here. Laptop Mag. There we go. I'll bring it up now. So it's talking here about this PC or this laptop, of course. So the Predator 21X is $9,000. Has two NVIDIA GTX 1080 GPUs. Has a 120 hertz refresh rate, 2560 by 1080 screen. It is curved. Up to four 512 gigabyte solid state drive, 64 gigs of RAM, and at that time, of course, the Intel Core i7 7820HK CPU, which is a mobile laptop CPU. But it's the size of this thing, though. 21-inch screen. It's not a laptop. It is literally just a mobile workstation, and you just put it down on a table. You plug it in with its giant brick, and that. But it's like if you want the actual,
and then you leave it.
Exactly. It's like so if you want your actual supreme cooling, that's the laptop you need to look for, because your little chill pads are not going to support any of that. Are not going to support that. So I wanted to circle around and talk about that with Valorant. Let's move into our next story, though, so we're not killing time here. And this one, I actually completely forgot about. So, Kyle, I'm glad you actually saw this one and made sure to include this in the list. But this one comes to us from The Verge. Amazon's Crucible is a free-to-play multiplayer game launching May 20th. the first big budget title from Amazon Game Studios. So Kyle, I'm going to go ahead and start playing this first look here. Talk to us about Crucible.
Alrighty, Crucible, new free-to-play PC game from Amazon's original game development arm, is launching later this month. The e-commerce giant announced on Tuesday, it's Amazon Game Studio first big-budget original game, as the studio has focused mostly on tablet games released through its Android App Store since the division launched back in 2012. The game is a sci-fi third-person shooter that mixes together a bunch of popular game designs, including components of team shooters like Blizzard's Overwatch, battle arena games like Valve's Dota 2, and battle royale hits like Epic's Fortnite and Respawn's Apex Legends. The result sounds like a combination of the game industry's most dominant competitive titles of the last 5 years, which could position Crucible at the forefront of Twitch and esports scene if it ends up taking off. And actually, the esports thing was the exact thought I was thinking as I was reading this, because I actually haven't had a chance to scope out the article yet. Crucible will feature a roster of different characters with specific abilities. Amazon isn't calling them heroes like most other games do, and 3 distinct game modes that each touch on competitive game biggest genres. The first mode, called Heart of the Hive, will be a 4 versus 4 mode pitting 2 teams against AI controlled enemies. The second mode, Alpha Hunters, will put 8 teams of 2 against one another in a battle royale style contest, with the last team standing declared the winner. And the last mode, Harvester Command, sounds like a bit like Dota 2 and League of Legends by putting 2 teams of 8 up against one another in a contest to collect essence and leveling up your characters mid-game.
Yep.
So is that more Dota 2 and League of Legends, or is that more... I'm trying to think of what a Gearbox's competitor was to Overwatch that everyone's just kind of glazed over because it came out right before Overwatch.
Oh God, I know exactly what you're talking about, but I can't think of the name of it. That's it. Yes. Partially. I don't know if this hits all of the same checkboxes as Battleborn did, but yeah, going in, like, watching the actual video and reading about this stuff too, is that the environment that you actually see in the video really looks like Apex Legends. It looks like you could be in Kings Canyon, or End of the World, or I can't remember the name of the second map, but it really looks like a lot of that, especially with the creatures walking around. You can see that too.
The next paragraph actually even says that the game seems to capture the exact zeitgeist as Valorant, because it has those elements of Overwatch and Counter-Strike combined in 2 of the game modes. So
yeah, and that's the big thing here exactly, is just the fact that I guess it makes sense that as things have gotten more and more popular, that, you know, some company would try to bring all of that together into one, and maybe Amazon was the one to do it. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to actually see. But for the mix of things there too, is that it sounds like it's trying to just grab at everybody. It's like, okay, you're not a big fan of shooters, you're not against trying them, but you really like your MOBAs. So here, we've got something that's a shooter, but mixes in a lot of that MOBA element to it.
And oh, go ahead. Sorry, I was just gonna say that.
You're cool, man. Go ahead.
I wonder if they're trying to cover too much of a broad spectrum in that sense. You know,
it's possible they could go the route that they're going to release all of these things in the one game. It's like, okay, here's all these modes, and then to better support as things go on, maybe what they'll do is they'll start to scale back. So maybe their essence, what is it, the Harvester Command mode, that one itself, maybe that one won't be the most popular. Maybe it's like, okay, we're not actually capturing people in here like we really wanted to, so we're gonna put less emphasis on developing for this one and really put more drive into the other modes. So, you know, who knows exactly how that's gonna be. So, like, I'm curious to see exactly how this one's going to go. When it comes to the Alpha Hunters, I mean, let's see, you're talking 8 teams of 2. So you're talking only, what is 2 8? You're only talking 16 players, and that's it.
Not necessarily bad though, depending
No,
on the arena size. I
exactly. I think the map's going to be small. I have a feeling that the map is going to be probably no bigger than maybe 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer at most, which is only about half the size of PUBG's newest map.
I do also kind of wonder if Amazon sees because they have the Twitch integration because of, everything they seeing how this does on Twitch, if it could affect you know other players for different
Mm-hmm.
games, if they could encounter like fees or something, uh, if they're not playing the game that Amazon wants them to play, or if they bash the game while they're playing it or something on Twitch. Will we see
Mm-hmm.
bans and stuff?
I would assume we would still.
I don't know. I'm just throwing ideas out there.
Yeah.
I'm having random thoughts about this.
Well, I
But
think
if
that
you
is
want something that doesn't want it, isn't necessarily going to blow up your computer, or might not, maybe there's an alternative in Crucible.
it's very possible it could definitely fill that niche that some people are looking for, and maybe because it has the best of all these different worlds that maybe it will suck enough people in. But I think like you were talking about, like with the Twitch integration and that though too, because of course that's going to be Amazon's focus, is like, okay, now we own this company that brings in billions of dollars, especially like just for gamers, if you don't count the just chatting, the DIY stuff, the art stuff, any of that, but specifically the gamers. And the amount of money that comes in from it though too, is the integration with it is going to be high on their list. And it's going to be key for them, of course, to keep that momentum going, especially as these games come out and you see their popularity hit there, like right at the very top. Like Valorant is still number one and has been since it came
Yeah.
out. I don't think it's been replaced by anything, even with your popular streamers still playing games like, excuse me, Warzone. They've fallen down to, like, I think the number 3 or number 4 spot. But Crucible, of course, is going to have to be that big one to really lock into there. And what surprises me most of all about this game is that it is going to be released on Steam. It's not going to be distributed through Twitch's desktop client. And I don't get that. I mean, it's the only reason I say that is because Amazon really likes to fork their own thing. I mean, like, look at the way the Kindle tablets work. I mean, they're just Android, just reskinned, and working a little different under the hood. But, the Twitch launcher for desktop is specifically used and integrated with an old client called Curse, which is used to download modded Minecraft. And I know there's a lot more in there too, but I'm surprised that, for Amazon to kind of like to start look at entering the game market, and now they've got this game and then they've got some sort of MMO that's down the line too. Why not use your own launcher and start to build that base where it's like, okay, you can install the game through your launcher here, and at the same time it's already integrated into your Twitch stream, and maybe kind of start to take away some of even like that market share from like XSplit and OBS. And it's like now they can start working towards their own it's an all-in-one, is that you can stream, you can play, you can interact and everything just through one client.
Or maybe they don't feel that their launcher has the integrity to handle the clientele just yet.
That's fair. That's actually a very fair assessment. The other part of it though too that we could really see with it is what do I want to say here? The other part of it too is it could be the security behind the scenes though too, is that it's not to say that Amazon is not secure, but they may not have actually gone that far. Whereas with Steam, the way their shop handles transactions, the way their shop handles player interaction and finding teams and supporting a lot of that, is that they don't have the Twitch launcher doesn't have any back end like that whatsoever. And even the mods you download for
Right.
Minecraft, that's great. That's as soon as you download them, that's about it. There's really no other integration with Twitch there, save for you can sign into Twitch right on the settings menu of Minecraft and go from there. That's about it. So that's probably why. But again, I still find it curious that it's like, hey, it's like we're gonna launch it, and hey, here's a new launcher we're gonna put it on for Twitch that lets you do all these things. But maybe that'll be down the line when the MMO comes out, and they'll have maybe sort of a main screen, kind of like Battle.net, where you see World of Warcraft, Diablo, StarCraft, Overwatch, and then of course a couple of the Activision games, Black Ops 4 and Modern Warfare. Excuse me. So yeah, just a little bit more ranting on that topic specifically, but I wanted to kind of talk about that because it's like if Amazon's trying to really put their foot out there as the next gaming company, the next gaming developer or game publisher company, that's one part of it that I would see. But the future is definitely not written. We can definitely see a lot more coming up. So
Is it sad that I feel like that they will be more successful than Google
no.
just because Amazon doesn't tend to abandon projects?
No, they really don't, because like Amazon, they don't abandon stuff, they just roll it into other projects. They take all of the good from this one, they get rid of some of the bad. And of course some of the bad will still come with, but they integrate it with other things. And I mean that's like what Amazon AWS, their web services platform, is all about anyway too, is these things that worked and may not have been as good here, but in the long run will be better if they're integrated like this. So yeah, Amazon's that way. Google, on the other hand, it's like this doesn't work. Let's just turn the switch. We're gonna go ahead and turn all this down. That's it. We're done. So yeah, you're right. I actually think this is a better way for Amazon to get involved and then to work their way up towards it. But I of course see some merit in what Google's doing. I don't know. I think Amazon is going to win the race in a different way than Google will.
I think so too.
But we're going to have to see. But let's move into our next story. And this one is definitely going to be a fun one. So sorry, Nintendo. This one comes to us from Kotaku, and this was published on Monday. Massive Nintendo leak reportedly includes Wii source code, developer materials, and N64 test ROMs. So because we are in the midst of getting ready for the possibility of some Nintendo 64 emulation, possibly on the Switch, like natively at least, through a virtual console. This could potentially be a big deal, depending, of course, on where things came from and if it is part of any of that at all. So, Kyle, talk to us about this one.
Yeah, what appears to be an unprecedented trove of information related to several past Nintendo consoles was leaked to the internet starting last Friday. Many of the thousands of leaked files concern Nintendo's 2006 Wii console, including detailed design documents and even seemingly its source code. Such information would be of great interest to emulation enthusiasts, data miners, and anyone curious about the Japanese gaming giant's notorious secretive path. The article does go on to say links to some of the titles were posted on the internet from internet forum 4chan. It's unclear who was responsible for leaking them or the original source, but they appear to include the Wii source code and detailed schematics for its hardware, as well as hardware test demos for 1996 Nintendo 64 console and information about the internal workings of the company's 2001 GameCube platform. So this is kind of crazy. Thinking to this, what are some of the hardest emulators to even think about getting running on a PC? Now, I mean, we see the GameCube and stuff. We see the Wii, no problem, but that 64, that source code for the 64, I don't know if they'll touch on it yet, but I have to mention it because it was so cool. The very next day that stuff popped up on the internet, someone had a better working version of the Mario 64 ROM working.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with you on that. I have not actually found a N64 emulator that I really liked for PC. At the same time, one of those things too is like what is it? It's the Wii U emulator, CEMU, CEMU, I think is what it's called.
Hmm.
I wanted to like I'll fully admit, I wanted to oops, what am I doing here? Get out of here. I wanted to try to like just see what that would be like because I've seen videos of people running Breath of the Wild in 4K, with like updated textures in that too, because someone made some sort of like mod pack for it. Uh, you know, that's a feat all on its own to be able to get that game and that, running at least at even higher quality than it is now, and it looks great still. But yeah, exactly. Is that the N64 is just, the way Nintendo locked stuff down pre CD, it's just a pain in the ass to even try to sort that out. And so if anybody's going to be able to do anything with it, it's anybody who, of course, has already worked on stuff for N64 emulation in the first place.
Hmm.
Yeah, like let's see. It says here later on, it said the leak also include functioning ROMs for various N64 hardware and test demos created to test or show off the console's capabilities. You can now watch footage of several of those on YouTube. One called Mirror House Cornflakes shows a polygonal character navigating a maze, while another called Morph Demo shows how the hardware handles the surface of a 3D object as its size and shape change. So apparently it's 3 gigabytes of files. It says there might be actually more out there. So, of course, I had the video going while you were talking here, Kyle, of the Morph Demo. And all it is just a cube changing to a sphere with
Yeah.
Mario's image imposed on each of the sides of the cube. So, it makes sense, of course, as a tech demo when you want to show off how it's handling the actual 3D rendering. So,
See, and I've heard as a bigger scope that if you look at all the data that's been leaked, gathered from the various consoles, specifically like the GameCube, the 64, and the Wii, you're looking at something like a trove of something like terabytes of data that's available now online through various resources.
right. I got the video up of that Mirror Cornflakes demo thing now. So going through it, it definitely looks like an N64 game, for at
Oh
least
yeah.
some of these things. But it looks like what it's doing is that it's showing flat representations of these players that you can actually select, and as it goes back and forth between them, the player character renders from what looks like 2D down to something 3D. Yeah, of course, yeah, it definitely looks just as cheap as it could be. But it's a tech demo. It's exactly built to do just that. So
But kind of cool information. I just hope it doesn't hurt Nintendo too bad. And 'cause especially
I don't
with
think
them
so.
already attacking the emulation community as far as making backups, quote unquote,
Mm-hmm.
of games. Uh, but I also think maybe hopefully it'll light a fun fire under Nintendo's ass to maybe start putting out some 64 games, putting out some GameCube games on the Switch. Maybe we'll see a virtual console for those that you can pay for, I don't know, an additional couple bucks, or I'd pay an additional $5 a year to be able to play 64 games.
Mm-hmm. I would too. I'm right there with you. I would pay that money as well. I mean, I don't think the virtual
Because that
console price
membership is
or
already super cheap.
yeah, I don't think there'd be any reason to pay any different. And I think at that lower cost, if you did release something like, an N64 virtual console or even as far as GameCube, that at that low price, you could still make a lot of money, because it's like you already own the IP. You don't really need to develop much else other than changing some of the code base under the scenes, or behind the scenes to work with the console, but that's it.
Hmm.
That's the key thing. Otherwise, everything else is just, gravy. You don't have to redevelop. You don't have to rebuild the wheel. But
Right.
that's neat. I know Nintendo's gonna go and start doing a lot of cease and desist stuff with this. So let's see how that goes. I'm sure they've probably already started hitting the hammer really hard, with a lot of these things. So Let's
as
see.
Nintendo does.
Agreed. Yeah, we'll see what comes of it. Let's move on to our next story here. And this one comes to us from PC Gamer, and I'm kind of excited about this, a little hesitant on it. The rumor is Mass Effect Trilogy Remaster, I almost said remaster will be out before next April. Electronic Arts said yesterday that an HD title will be announced, and the word on the street is that it's Mass Effect. Electronic Arts said yesterday that it intends to release 14 new games during the next fiscal year, which runs until the end of March 2021. Titles weren't revealed, although 4 were confirmed as sports games, so that includes a new Madden, new FIFA, new NHL, and a mysterious 4th. And there will also be mobile games in the mix, some indie stuff from partner developers, some new IP, and an additional EA HD title. It was all fairly conventional and unremarkable as these things go, but got more interesting today when VentureBeat reported that the HD title in question will in fact be a remaster of the Mass Effect trilogy. There's no more to it than that, but it's an entirely unambiguous statement that HD remaster of an EA game is the Mass Effect trilogy, and VentureBeat's Jeff Grubb was confident enough that he tweeted specifically to draw attention to the statement. So it's a rumor. We don't know if it's going to happen, but if it's possible that there's a new Mass Effect game being worked on right now, and it's not the bullshit Andromeda, is it possible that it's something that could tie in with Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3 and allow you maybe to import some stuff to carry on, maybe not as Commander Shepard, but as something, of course, related to him, and, his decisions will affect you as you go into playing that new game. What do you think?
Right. That'd be cool. I think, or even if they, if they didn't have a way to import your data, or if you didn't already have data, do what they did in the previous games, where you kind of did a quick batch note. Hey, this is the decisions I would have made.
Yeah, that would be kind of neat if, like, if you did go on the path of good, that it actually continues carrying you on that way, and like the way you skew it, mess it up, doesn't make anything bad. Or if you were neutral, of course, then it's whatever.
I don't know. I don't know. I think it's been long enough, and since we have the shit show of an Andromeda, that maybe we could just get the whole trilogy, like, I don't know, remastered with, updated graphics, maybe a little bit better, better working of the code, so it runs a little bit smoother, more like 2 did, but do that to 1. Make the trilogy more cohesive and release it as a full bundle, all as a collective, the definitive Mass Effect experience.
Mm-hmm. What I was wondering too, especially, was what if they released it the same way they've been doing, like the Master Chief Collection on PC as an example, that, like they staggered it. So it's like, here's the remastered Mass Effect, here's the remastered 2, here's the remastered 3, and they stagger its release to, give some more time up until whatever the new Mass Effect game is. So that way, it's not too much time, say, in between them. But it gives enough time, at least, for you to play out the game you want to, and then move into the next one, with your consequences, of course, following you. I just wonder if that might be one thing. But the only other reason I say that, though, too, is because it's EA and they like to make money. So are they going to go the same way as Square Enix did with Final Fantasy VII's remake and charge you $60 a game every time it comes out?
But with Final Fantasy VII, that was like a complete reimagining almost
of one part.
Yeah, and you only play a section of the game, so yeah.
Exactly. No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong in that one. That's why I'm wondering that if they would do the same thing, and because it's EA, they like to really kind of like scrape for every dollar they can get. So I could see them doing that potentially, but it would be cool if they did a full 3-pack. Here's 1, 2, 3. You can just play it all in one go. But I'm not holding my breath.
Like $60, because with modern technology, they're taking, even with what they're doing with the Xbox One, they're able to upscale the graphics a little bit, so it can do a little bit of like HDR. It's basically the upscaling that you saw with the 360 to the Xbox One, just on a little bit better scale, I think. And they could do that with Mass Effect.
True.
very easily.
True, exactly. I mean, BioWare hasn't been up to much lately, so we can only hope that it's truly, BioWare actually
Well,
doing the work.
they,
Save for
they are
Anthem.
planning to, try and save Anthem again. I don't. We'll see about that.
Yeah, we will see about that. And that's where we transition into seeing what our next story is. This one comes to us from Polygon. Cyberpunk 2077's ESRB rating describes customizable genitalia and possible crucifixion. So the ESRB rating finally dropped for Cyberpunk 2077. And of course, it makes sense for it to start dropping now, because if this game is going to be out in September, there needs to be the time for things to be printed, and the information and like the marketing materials and information to get out there that actually include such things as the actual ESRB rating itself. So the generic, of course, descriptions we got on here for it being rated M are blood and gore, intense violence and nudity, strong language, strong sexual content, use of drugs and alcohol, which for this game being as open world and a lot of the things promised, it definitely makes sense. But of course, I want to move down here to the exact paragraphs here that this is talking about, kind of the actual title of the story here. The ESRB describes a mission where you assist a character by hammering nails through his hands and feet, and also mentions that the game includes drugs, both real and fictional, and depictions of their use. Then there's the sexual content. The game contains nudity and sexual material, the ESRB states. Players can select a gender and customize their character. Customization can include depiction of breasts, buttocks, and genitalia, as well as various sizes and combinations of genitals. So, I mean, Cyberpunk is about being cyberpunk, and the body modification, the adjustments, the chaos that you put your body through to enhance yourself.
I mean, in the trailer, there's
It's
person with a robot face and no lower jaw. So
exactly. So I think the level of customization that they're expecting here, because of course it's not necessarily CD Projekt Red, but it's all of these other games that allow you to customize your character, especially at that granular detail, like the Fallout series or even Skyrim. I'm sure there's plenty of others that, we can go back to Mass Effect if you want to think about how you can make Commander Shepard look. But I think in this day and age, with the way the narratives have really, truly changed, and of course about being inclusive with LGBTQ, anybody who falls into any of that specifically, or doesn't feel, of course, falling into your gender stereotypes, and that this really kind of, I think, offers a way to let them, if they can't go through with anything. And of course, I'm kind of going off the cuff for this one, but it's more of like inviting that it's like, okay, we're going to make this game as big as it can be, but we're going to really let you make the character that you want, not just here's some generic templates, here's some things you can change. We're going to let you get down to the details that maybe you do care about, maybe that does give you something here that lets you identify as, that character that's like, this is truly something I created. This is how I feel in this game, whether you're a boy or a girl or however you describe yourself. I think maybe that's the way that CD Projekt Red is going with this, and good on them. I know there's probably some people who, like, I can already see some of the people who are playing this game already going to give themselves like massive, basically make themselves into a tripod, if possible.
Oh, I can see it.
Yeah. And it's going to be cybernetic for some reason. I don't know.
Yeah, just tripod with double D's. That.
How'd you know what my character was going to look like?
Right.
Shame on you. Shame on you. But that, again, I think it makes sense just for the way the narratives and things have changed in the world, offering that level of detail. I'm sure we're going to see. Oh, do you remember when Spore first came out? All of the different dick monsters that we got.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if this is going to be about the same way, that it's going to be like an entire subreddit dedicated to CD Projekt Red's new game. And, it's going to be like, I don't know, some sort of not safe for work, cyber junk or something like that is what they're going to call it. I don't know. Maybe I should get on that and start that subreddit. I don't know. But that was just my idea. I was just wondering, like, is that what we're going to get to as a new Spore level of chaos and customization, but who knows?
I see this as maybe them pushing the envelope, but I don't know if this will be the new norm in games. I don't think we'll ever see this as a norm, but we'll start to see more of these features appear.
Mm-hmm.
This is just the start of it, but it won't be. Like I said, it's just the beginning. We won't see more of this until further on down the line, many years from now. It's just them doing their best to push the envelope.
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely. No, you're right. I think that's in their nature to do that, so that makes the most sense. Let's move on here into our next story, and this one, of course, made Preston very happy, as you probably saw in our chat there, Kyle.
Oh yeah.
This one comes to us specifically from Nintendo Life, and I wanted to focus on it, of course, because, we're going to get a Switch version of it. Mortal Kombat 11 Aftermath revealed, a new story expansion launching this month alongside RoboCop. So Mortal Kombat 11, of course, released, let's see, it's got the date here, literally a year ago. Like, at least for the UK, the European Union, and Australia, it released a year ago Sunday. And now we're getting basically the continuation of that story and continuation of the chaos that is Mortal Kombat. So yeah, I'm just going to play the trailer here and you guys can decide for yourself exactly what you think of it.
Our work is finished, Liu Kang.
Lord Raiden,
It falls upon you to architect a new history.
then together.
I will turn it down a bit so we can kind of talk about this too, Kyle, but I didn't play enough of the new Mortal Kombat to like understand exactly how far the story goes. How much did you actually get into it?
I've honestly only just started it, so I've only scratched the surface, maybe 3 or 4 fights into the main story.
Okay. Did the guy who plays Shang Tsung in the first Mortal Kombat movie, did he voice Shang Tsung in this? Because his character model looks like almost one for one, save for, of course, the mustache and the whole Fu Manchu setup.
I didn't do any digging into that. It makes me awful curious. But you saying that makes me want to point out the fact that the person that is doing the voice for RoboCop is Peter Weller.
Yeah.
Who I believe was the original RoboCop, is it not?
That's correct. Yep. Yeah, so he's so Peter Weller, he voiced, he was he wasn't just the voice of, he was actually the actor who played Murphy in RoboCop 1, 2, 3. And then also another role that he was in was Star Trek Into Darkness. He played the head of Starfleet that went all crazy, because of Khan.
Right.
Yeah. Just I figured that was one of those things to mention, even though of course we're talking about RoboCop. Yeah. Huh. I mean, I gotta give it to Preston on this one. It's like, they do give you really a lot in this game too, and it looks like they really did a good job on the story with this too, of course, for the fact that, they did such a good job that it made sense to do another, an expansion of this that continued that story. But I don't know, maybe I should give this one a shot.
I don't know. Maybe it's one we'll have to do a stream of when we get back together. Because I think we did a stream one night, or at least for a little bit, didn't we?
So if you remember, that was when we were using.
Look exactly like the actor.
No, and that's the funny. I think they probably may have done some actual facial models or something like that. They did enough scans from the movies and that, but they probably had him come in because other than being older, I'm sure that he can probably, they could probably pull enough off of him and then kind of de-age him. No, but we did try to stream this one. We did try to do that, but we had that older capture card. So, and it was when it kept on crashing out on us, if you remember. I think it was the first one we attempted to stream together, and it just kept going out. Yeah. But the cool part, though, with this game coming out is that we don't have long to wait for this expansion. 26th of May. So that's only a few weeks out now. So anybody who's into Mortal Kombat, don't have to wait too long for this, and I guarantee Preston's probably going to have a video on this one. So we'll have to keep an eye out on that. I'm gonna have to just see how RoboCop goes. I mean, he's pretty stiff and he doesn't really move around too fast. I don't know what to think of that. I mean,
Actually, I just looked it up. It is the actor that played Shang Tsung in the original Mortal Kombat movie, did the voice of Shang Tsung
because
from Mortal Kombat
if you
11.
because if you actually look at the facial, like the actual character model, like if you got rid of the Fu Manchu going on, it looks exactly like Shang Tsung from the first Mortal Kombat movie, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, so it
Yeah.
is him doing the voice acting for Shang Tsung.
Nice.
So yeah, maybe it's one we'll have to try and stream again when we get back together.
Yeah,
Do a
agree.
round robin or something.
Absolutely, man. I think that game is going to look sick, but let's carry on into this next one. And this is actually a continuation of our first story from the evening. This one comes to us from Games Radar again. Microsoft confirms Xbox Series X exclusives to be shown off in July with new reveals every month. So just like you were talking about, Kyle, about Xbox 2020, so Xbox 2020 is Microsoft's launch of its Xbox Series X campaign starting this week. Microsoft has announced Xbox 2020, a monthly digital event designed to outline the future of the Xbox platform with fresh reveals of upcoming Xbox Series X games, exciting details about initiatives like Project xCloud, and more. In a new blog post on the Xbox website, CVP of Gaming Marketing Jarrett West also confirmed that a first look at Xbox Series X exclusives will take place in July, while this Thursday's edition of Inside Xbox will focus mainly on upcoming third-party titles for the platform. No kidding. So they are taking a page out of Nintendo's book with the Nintendo Directs that they would do, either once a month or once a quarter, and then Sony's updates.
Their state of play.
Thank you. Yes, that's the name of it. So it looks like they're really taking a page from that. And again, this.
But I also feel like releasing the information for the Series X allows them to segmenting it in such a way, but also putting out quite a bit at chunk at a time. Allows them to maybe not necessarily backpedal, but if they do make a mistake, they can address it more properly than when they did with the Xbox One release, where they were like, "There's going to be DRM and it's going to burn to your disc, and you're not going to be able to share discs anymore." So
yeah, exactly.
Maybe this is a smart idea. I like this.
I don't have a problem with that either, and I think it was about time. And this kind of circles us back to our discussion about Tokyo Game Show and how a lot of the companies, of course, are going more towards the digital events. And the fact that it's like Sony had already been doing their state of play for a long time. We've been getting Nintendo Directs for several years now anyway, too. It just seems like that was the next logical step, was to actually see, of course, Microsoft adopt to that, or adopt it and adapt to it. And might be the norm going forward because, as we talked about, like I said, is spreading out that content over a longer period of time instead of dumping all of your eggs into one basket allows for you to continue that hype and carry it on. And
it's kind of like a soft launch almost.
Almost, exactly. Exactly. You're still building up the hype and you're still getting people ready for what's coming. But I think Microsoft has actually done the better part of this versus Sony, because Sony is really keeping everything under control and under wraps with not only pricing, of course, like Microsoft is with their new console, but we haven't even seen the damn thing. We've seen the controller. We know how it's going to run under the hood. Of course, at great length, we know how well it's going to run under the hood. A lot of the games that we've seen thus far, of course, like with the Inside Xbox event, are going to be multi-platform. So they're not just Xbox Series X, but they're PC. They're going to be some Switch, some PlayStation 5. It's not just that. So, I think Microsoft actually, in the grand scheme of it all, now that they're adapting to this and doing these digital events as a part of their Xbox 2020 vision. God, I hate saying that. I think they've hit the nail on the head for every single thing they're doing.
Right.
And I think that's put them miles ahead of Sony. I'm sure that there are probably people out there who will see that and think, you are just an idiot. What is wrong with you? And I don't think so. I mean, Microsoft's really they've already shown off the hardware. They're continuously building up the hype by sharing details as things come out and go around. We are seeing some stuff for some games, not all games, but I think we've had enough information given to us from time to time that they've built up, I think, the right amount of hype for their console without, I say, going overboard. I think Sony's going to fall into that trap, and something is going to be horribly wrong with the PlayStation 5. Or not necessarily horribly wrong, but something's going to be off about the PlayStation 5. And whether that's a supply issue, whether it's the way the console looks, whether it's some sort of flaw that they weren't even aware of course, when it comes to launch time. Of course, Microsoft can suffer the same way too. But the fact that we've had so much silence on it, we haven't seen anything yet, I think is what put them ahead.
Sony's been that big tease, and Microsoft's, they give us so much, but they don't. Like, they're like, here's the console. We'll even show you it taken apart. We'll show you us putting it together. We're not going to tell you yet what's in it.
Yeah.
And then later on, we're going to tell you some of what's in it. This is really cool, huh? And they just kind of play it like that instead of, here's a logo.
I think
here's a controller.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that's definitely a big problem with it too, is Sony kind of went overboard, I think, on the technical discussion they had earlier this year. And just like you said, because Microsoft actually let, like, Austin Evans, as an example, one of the top, like a top YouTuber, right. Like, he came in, and they had a magnetic, put it together yourself Xbox Series X right there with probably near final hardware. But then as soon as he was done, he was sitting in a chair and actually playing ray traced Minecraft, which I assume was using one of the new Xbox Series X controllers and and an actual Series X. But, he was actually playing games right there. Or maybe it wasn't Minecraft. Maybe it was the Gears 5 demo. But still, he was playing those games, right there on that. It wasn't anything hidden behind the scenes, at least from, as much as we could tell. But it's like, here's something, I guess you could say, living and breathing. So I guess we just have to see what Sony can truly deliver on, and whether they actually deliver on it properly or not is it's up in the air.
I don't know. I feel like the launch of the Xbox Series X is panning out to be kind of like when you were, at least for me, like when you were a kid and you hear and see about new consoles and you see them in the store, and you get a chance to play a game for 2 minutes or something, looking up at the TV in the game aisle, like when you were a little kid. I don't know. I get that type of nostalgia from it. There's this sense of wonder because you're getting so much, but you really aren't.
Absolutely. You've got it right there. You got it right there down to a T, man. Yeah, I think out of the console war stuff, at least out of the gate, I think Microsoft's going to have it. I think it's their. I think
so too.
I think it's their turn to have it because of the way the launch for the Xbox One went, and a lot of the emphasis more on entertainment than just gaming. And like you said, the DRM stuff, the family stuff, the forced packed in Connect. That's going to be a big part. Is that I think, like, Microsoft learned their lesson. I think they got things right this time around. We're just gonna have to wait and see. Unfortunately, we're not at that point yet to actually have the consoles yet and put anything into hands. So more waiting. Waiting. Let's move on here. This is our second to last story of the evening. And I don't actually know how big of a market share it was. I'm sure the story actually goes into it, if I recall. This one comes to us from Engadget, and this one could have been a part of last week's, but we missed it. Valve will no longer support Steam VR on Mac OS. In an unsurprising turn of events, Valve has announced that it is ending Steam VR support for Mac OS. Spotted by Apple Insider, the company made a terse announcement on its website stating that Steam VR has ended Mac OS support so our Steam can focus on Windows and Linux. Legacy builds will remain available, though, so tinkerers can still code VR experiences that run on Apple hardware. It does not provide any stats here in the actual article. I thought I had seen something, but It's been on. It's been in use since 2017, since macOS High Sierra launched, and the OS enabled the use of an external GPU over Thunderbolt 3, which could provide the additional processing power needed to run high-end VR applications. So, I mean, it depends, I guess, on the market share, really. You know, if there's no information here that talks about specifically how many people are playing on Mac, you know, versus that, I guess it would make sense. There probably is not enough, and I'm sure that Valve has probably gone back to Apple and said, "Hey, we're trying to run this, we're trying to do this, and we're running into this issue," and Apple's just like, we're busy in the content creation side of things, and you know, trying to sell people $1,400 laptops and $400, $600 wheels for a computer.
And that brings up my next point. You know, if you own a Mac, are you really buying it to game? I mean, that's what the Steam, in my opinion, if it comes down to the Steam support, you know, especially continuing to support Mac, if it becomes a financial thing, if you own a Mac, are you really owning it to game? You're not. You're owning it as a workstation. The Mac is like a way of life. You know, you're probably a producer. You're a creator of some sort of creative, at least. You know, whether it be a writer, an artist, whether it be drawing, painting, or music. It is more, I think, driven to be that workstation for the creative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's exactly.
I'm not trying
again,
to bash on, you know, people for liking Mac, you know, for specific things, but I feel like there is a large section of what the Mac way of life is about is directed specifically towards that.
Yes, agreed. Yeah, I remember a friend of mine back in 2014 or 2015 had gotten an iMac. You know, I can't remember exactly why he got it. Probably one of those good deal things or something, but it was brand new. And I remember him talking to me about it. He's like, "Yeah, I want to try some games on it." And I remember, I was like, "Okay, screw it." So I think we had just gotten paid. So I broke out my debit card and I ended up just buying Portal. Like, I set him up a whole Steam account and bought Portal on there, and we tried out Portal on the Mac, and it was okay. I mean, you know, 2014, 2015, the game came out in 2007, 2008, so it was all right. But no, nowhere in there do I see that being a gaming machine. Nothing about it screams gaming. It really still screams, not to try to offend anybody, of course, who likes their Apple products, but it does scream a little bit of just being pretentious, especially if you have the more recent oversized, like the Mac Pro, especially the iMac Pro, of course, that came out. But if you're using like the things like the MacBook Air, you know, you're not going over the top with it just for the sake of going over the top. Like, you actually need that stuff. If you're not doing that, then you're fine. It's just I don't like a lot of the pretentious stuff that comes with owning an Apple product. And I can see that, especially like with Valve. It's like, well, if Apple's not going to work with us, then just fuck it, we're done. Yeah, because I don't even think, like, if you ran Windows emulation or if you dual booted a Mac, how well would it run? Like, you know, how well would it actually run if you dual booted it running Windows on there? Or would it be better to build a Hackintosh that you dual booted? You know, and then that way you have the Windows side of it that can run all these different things. At the same time, if you need something for that content creation, you've got Mac OS on the other side. But that's whatever.
Especially since the Mac boards, any of the hardware is more geared towards that OS and that experience. So, you know, I can't imagine a Windows environment operating too well. You know, I would see some clashing, you know, in the hardware department.
Yeah, exactly. Because Apple, like, they really source the way their components go in. And I mean, you look, it's like, it doesn't matter if it's got an Intel processor in it. Granted, yes, the Intel processor they put in the new Mac Pro is your standard run-of-the-mill one. It's nothing out of the ordinary. But the graphics card that's actually in the new Mac Pro, I don't know if I've seen anybody actually take one of them apart yet. But it looks like it's in its own custom shroud. So I don't know if they just took the GPU and then just kind of like just shoved it in there to make it work. Excuse me. But they, it's all these custom little things just to make Apple and make you spend more for their stuff. So that's
Right.
yeah.
I've seen
I don't know.
examples of, you know, uh, just just like photo editing software running at its highest uh, highest specs, on an Apple, but that same Apple can't necessarily run a top of the line game at the highest specs. It's just the way the hardware's formatted. So,
Yeah, exactly.
well, and it's kind of like, the difference between programming for a PC and programming for a console. You're limiting yourself to that environment, to that specific hardware. So, and you have to design things or redesign things to be able to match or to actually work appropriately with the specifics. Otherwise, you could, just fry your computer.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with you. That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. I mean, let's go back to the
So
way Valorant's going with their Vanguard software.
yeah, and
Bastards.
that could potentially mean that Steam could pull a whole division of people from that sector to go work on other things.
Yeah.
Maybe like a Half-Life 3. I'll stop. I'm sorry.
Once wishful thinking for the end of our stream as we go into our last story, Kyle. Good job, man.
Right.
All right. So this is our last story, and of course, I'm including this because this was a request actually from one of our viewers in a previous one, was to kind of talk about some of the gaming hardware as it relates more to the PC side of things. So I wanted to highlight this one because for anybody, of course, that's watching, this is something definitely to know because PCs originally had always been one of those things that's like you need to know a lot to be able to get one put together and to get running and to set up, to play games on though too. And of course, a lot of the confusion between core count, the type of RAM you need, what type of storage you need, is my power supply truly going to be big enough? Is this graphics card actually going to work for me or not? And as the time has gone on, especially in the last, I would say, 7 to 10 years, we've seen a resurgence of PC building, but at the same time, more of the ease of actually like building your own PC, and the support that's out there to do it, and the number of YouTubers that have shown how to actually do this and run forums where people are talking together to do that. And so that's why I want to highlight Gamers Nexus. Of course, they're a big YouTube channel, so they really don't need us saying anything. But recent or here in the next couple of weeks, AMD is going to be launching their Ryzen 3 3300X and 3100 CPUs. The Ryzen 3 3300X, per their reviews, has been benchmarked to be either equal to or just above a Core i7 7700K from Intel, which is still a very popular chip with a lot of people. I mean, it's 3 generations behind, but it still has enough headroom and horsepower to actually support. But the biggest thing, though, about this is that besides that chip being several years old, the Ryzen 3 3300X is only going to cost about $120.
That is a smoking deal.
It really is. So I'm going to show a couple things here. I'm not going to read the whole thing because the way Gamers Nexus works is that they're very technical. I mean, you're talking like they're getting to like the way these chips are built and talking about a lot of the low level stuff that makes these things work the way they do. So if anybody wants to go back and look at that stuff with Gamers Nexus, I do highly recommend to go look them up on YouTube. And if you can handle sitting through a lot of the technical stuff, that's, it's definitely worth it to actually see how things work. So I'm going to scroll down here to some of the actual game stuff. So they did benchmarking on Total War 3 Kingdoms Battle at 1080p. With a GTX or an RTX 2080 Ti for 8 gigabyte sticks of RAM. They were running this game, what is it? Let's see. I had seen it earlier, of course, when we were looking at stock stuff here. Where are you? R3 33. Yeah, here it is. The AMD R3 3300X 4-core 8-thread stock on its average frame rate was running about 120 What is that? Yeah, about 100. God, I lost it again. 128 frames per second on average. Okay, with of course the lows hitting to about the mid 60s to mid 70s. So that's at 1080p. Of course, it changes as things go up. Let me see if I can find some other games here that some people really care about. So here's one with the Division 2 running at medium settings, 1080p with the same setup. That processor, let's see, where are you? The R3 3300X stock was running an average frame rate of 181 frames per second. So, and even with Red Dead Redemption 2 with at 1080p,
123.9 frames a second, so almost 124 frames a second, even on Red Dead.
Yeah.
So you're getting some really, really quality frame rate with this chip.
Exactly, especially if you don't want to push anything, like if you don't need the higher fidelity graphics or anything. I mean, like GTA 5 is an example. Yeah, and GTA 5 is an example because that game's been out since 2013 and a lot of people are going crazy still playing it. So like the R3 3300X stock has an average frame rate of 103.6 frames per second. Okay, so again, that's with the understanding, of course, that you're not introducing a bottleneck with a lower spec like GPU or anything like that. Of course, this was benched with a 2080 Ti. 32 gigs of RAM, a very high powered power supply. But you think for those who want to enter the gaming world, especially on the PC side of things, this might be a budget option. Like this might be like end up actually being the best option that is actually available.
I mean, you could with this card, you could, or with this chip, you could potentially build a gaming PC for on a budget $400 or $500.
Exactly. So you're talking about, you think $120 for a processor. You don't like if you completely skip on the aesthetics of a gaming PC and you just went with something that was, closed up. It still had all of its cooling and so on that, but you skipped a lot of the frills, the RGB, like the Trident Z RAM that has like a chrome finish along the sides of the heat spreaders. Okay, if you skipped all of that and you went with the base level stuff and picked yourself up maybe a used or a new GTX 1660 Ti or something, or 1660 Super, you could play decent 1080p games at least it's stable 60 frames per second, most likely.
Yeah.
That's a big thing, especially like with you, Kyle, as an example, is that you have your your laptop is really behind on things. And if you build a gaming PC and didn't want to spend a lot of money, this might be an option for you. Preston doesn't have a gaming PC. He's using this old laptop. This might be an option for him too. I don't know where Dan sits on his build, where I sit on my stuff right now. I don't have a reason to really upgrade yet, save for a GPU. But here at some point in time, I know for a fact I'm going to need to do a GPU upgrade. Or I know for a fact I really need to. But this at least...
But you're talking about a processor chip that could potentially carry you for, I would say, probably a good 6 years. You might have to do some other hardware upgrades, minor ones, granted, within that time. But, I mean, you're seeing the ability to build a computer with the lifespan, or that would have essentially the lifespan as far as gaming as the old gaming lifespan, which was 6 years.
Yes.
That'd be pre-360. So that's actually not bad because you're spending about the same price.
Exactly. And then the best part, though, too, is one thing
it does give you room to upgrade. So
yes, and one thing I didn't mention here, of course, is this is the AM4. This is the AM4 socket, so of course it is a Ryzen, so that means it's going to fit in any of these boards that have already come out. But because this is built on the Zen 2 architecture, the big thing with it is that it supports PCI Express Gen 4 connectivity, which means as more stuff comes out that actually starts to support PCI Gen 4, you're talking about faster read-write speeds to solid-state drives, especially those that connect in through PCI Express. You're talking about better connectivity between any of your any of your peripherals that connect through into the PCI Express slots. You're especially talking about more lanes, which means you could add more lane heavy PCI Express cards. Like maybe you want to add in a couple Elgato capture cards and have them kind of like, working together in tandem, or you want to add in a couple GPUs, even if you don't do anything with SLI or Crossfire or anything. You still, have those extra lanes to be able to actually support the communication between everything, especially for those who are researching a lot of like the neural stuff though too, the neural net, and require you like those beefy GPUs, but maybe you don't need to pay as much anyway though too. But it's a value for those who want to build a PC and at the same time also not break the bank and get you into that path to be able to play PC games. And once Valorant, of course, is an example, they have their shit together. Riot has their shit together with trying to sort out Vanguard and some of the bugs and issues that are there. They've promised that this game was going to be able to run on basically any PC. That means that at least a game that is new and coming out, you can have everything on the computer, just auto set your graphics and then just go. Especially with the possibility of the Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 being over $600.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That could get you well into those console generations, and give you an option as to something else if you don't want to spend that extra penny to jump into those new consoles right away. So
exactly. And then of course it's a multi-use machine. It's a computer. I mean, you're not only using it for gaming, you're paying your bills, you're getting pictures all sorted out. Maybe you're a graphic designer, maybe you're an editor, maybe you like to do sound.
Work, school, shopping, everything.
Yeah, exactly. That was it that we actually had in the news. I know it was definitely a long one. We're almost here at the 2-hour mark, but I think the only thing, of course, I didn't want to do it as another story. I couldn't really find a good feel-good story for the week. But in the scheme, of course, of Animal Crossing, AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the House of Representatives rep from New York, she's playing Animal Crossing, and she, of course, reached out, and got some dodo codes for people. So she's been visiting people at random, saying hello, checking out islands and stuff too. A lot of backlash for her, of course, because she's a politician and she's already driving enough. She drives enough chaos as is. But we're not.
I didn't want to mention it just because of that.
Yeah, I'm not. We're not here to get
funny that it's Animal Crossing.
We're not here to get into the politics of anything at all. I just wanted to say it's like she's doing that. Of course, and
I
it's
did
her.
think it was funny that even she tweeted, is it okay for me to ask for dodo codes this close to the hearing for Zuckerberg?
Absolutely. Yeah, she definitely put herself at risk there with those DMs, but hopefully, she came across some good ones and maybe she had some good turnip sales. But with all of that said, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for this week's news. A lot of good stuff we talked about, Kyle. A lot of things that we definitely, went over, and a lot of things to think about, especially as we're moving on into the next week, and hopefully some more information from Sony and Microsoft and even Nintendo on some of these new things they got coming out.
And it sounds like more to come. So
exactly. So I want to thank everybody, of course, for tuning in here, and we will catch you guys all in our next episode. Thanks again.
Later.